I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Ah, come on. How nice a way is that to start the show this morning? A little bit of Louis Armstrong and What a Wonderful World. It was, that song, number one in the UK on this day in 1968. So where are we at? 58 years ago? 32 and 25, Farwell. That's 57. 57 years ago, Louis Armstrong and What a Wonderful World. Number one on the UK music charts. That made, at the age of 69, Louis the oldest act ever to score a number one on the UK charts. And What a Wonderful World is the way that we start our show together this morning. Hey, a good Thursday morning to you. Hope the day is off to a great start. And thank you very much for stopping by, spending some of your time with us here on the program. That time is your most valuable commodity. So really, really pleased that you spend some of it with us, and we absolutely intend on rewarding you for your ears and participation today. This is the most interactive radio program you'll find anywhere in the region. We love hearing from you the moment we start the show every day. Lines are open at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. You can also reach out by email anytime, mike@570news.com. Peter has already done that, suggesting that if the region is in need of land for its homeless population, there are about 150 acres it owns already out in Wilmot Township. I see what you did there, Peter. You're picking on the two very biggest issues that our region is dealing with right now. My goodness, we'll talk more about the encampment and the attempts to clear it right around 9:15 this morning. And of course, the land assembly, whatever happened to that anyway? Is it still happening? Are we still buying up land in Wilmot Township and threatening the owners of said land with expropriation if they don't get on board? Beats the hell out of me. Things have gone awfully quiet on that front for now. But maybe once we move past this federal election and attention gets moved in other places, we'll hear more about that land assembly. Lots and lots going on, including, I don't know if you heard the reports this morning. And listen, I was rolling my eyes a little bit when I heard that the Toronto Star was reporting, because, you know, the Toronto Star is going to Toronto Star, about the, I guess, concern that has been raised within the federal Conservative Party about the safety or lack thereof when it comes to the seat of leader Pierre Poilievre. But the Globe and Mail is reporting the same on the front page as well, citing sources within the provincial and federal Conservative Party. I take this with a grain of salt. Personally, I find it very difficult to believe that Pierre Poilievre's Ottawa seat is in any way in jeopardy. But I guess the polling is showing that the Liberals are strong in the nation's capital. And so resources are being devoted to Pierre Poilievre's riding to ensure that the Conservative leader can hold on to his seat. The seats for leaders that are in jeopardy from where I'm sitting, Jagmeet Singh with the NDP, hands down, and Elizabeth May with the Greens, quite frankly. I have a hard time. I'm just taking it with a grain of salt. You can take it however you want it. But the reports this morning that Mr. Poilievre's seat may somehow be in jeopardy, I find those reports dubious at best, exaggerated at worst. Uh-oh. I need my music on for my computer, please, in the other room there. Can we do that? No, we didn't do that. There it is.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
That's what we play to get you ready for the Farwell Show. 5 and on this Thursday morning at number 1, Ontario's Special Investigations Unit probing a police-involved shooting at Pearson Airport this morning. Paramedics were called to Terminal 1 just before 7 a.m. The shooting described as an isolated incident with no threat to public safety. Operations remain affected at Canada's busiest airport, however. Number 2, Regional Council has approved a site-specific bylaw for 100 Victoria Street in Kitchener, allowing staff to move forward with plans to prepare the site for construction, and offered increased supports to residents as they transition to alternative housing options. The decision came after nearly 24 delegations at last night's council meeting, and some of those delegations were more passionate than others.
Today, there is an
Chris, I'm
opportunity
going to ask you to sum up. Your
stand
3
for
minutes is
human
up, Chris.
rights by opposing a bylaw change that allows the region to prevent camping, despite a January
Chris.
2025 court ruling safeguarding this human right. Thank you.
The decisions to move in this direction do not come from kindnesses, from the outpouring of love to these people. It is out of greed.
Regional staff now intend to seek further direction from Ontario's Superior Court of Justice as it tries to meet its anticipated construction schedule. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, get ready for more photo radar. The region is expanding its speed camera program, and several cameras are now becoming permanent. Those permanent locations include, starting on May the 5th, Three Bridges Road in Elmira, Hilltop Drive in Ayr, Broome Street in Ayr, and Keatsway Drive in Waterloo. Permanent speed camera locations. Also beware of a new camera on Catherine Street in Westmont Rose, outside Foundation Christian School. Number 4, Ontario has taken control of one school board over financial mismanagement, launched financial probes of 3 other boards, and ordered a 5th board to repay costs for a trip to Italy to buy art. Education Minister Paul Calandra says, quote, "Some school boards treat hard-earned tax dollars like their own, spending them on luxury hotels, fine dining, and first-class travel overseas, and booking extravagant retreats for meetings while accepting test results that in some cases show students struggling." The impacted boards include Toronto, Thames Valley in London, and Brant Haldimand. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Election Day in Canada is inching closer. Federal party leaders fanned out across the country today, trying to woo voters before Monday's election. Liberal leader Mark Carney delivering remarks this morning in British Columbia before holding a rally in Winnipeg tonight. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh starts his day in Winnipeg. Then he travels to Toronto for a campaign event. And Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre makes campaign stops today in Halifax and Saskatoon. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, what would you do at Weber and Victoria? How would you go about clearing the encampment? Or would you just leave the encampment where it is because it's public land? After all, this is the struggle the region is dealing with. They pass a site-specific bylaw that may, as they seek some guidance from Ontario's Superior Court, allow them to clear the encampment. But is this the direction the region should be moving? Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. So if you were listening to our show yesterday, towards the end of the show, I shared with you what was coming up on today's show, including a conversation with a member of Regional Council about the site-specific bylaw that was debated at Council last night. Lo and behold, late yesterday afternoon, early evening, whatever it was, said councillor had to change his plans and not join us on the show under the advice of the region's legal staff, because, of course, what we're talking about here with the site-specific bylaw is loaded with legal ramifications. So I understand that completely. And I just wanted to share with you why that conversation, in its fullness anyway, won't be coming up on the show today. We can't get a regional councillor at this point. But of course, we're going to continue to follow the story. And then we were told yesterday that the region would be issuing a statement, which it did. Now, something tells me I usually get these things emailed to me, but I had to go to the region's website to find the information this morning, which is fine. It comes under, this is one of the interesting parts about this. It comes under the headline, Kitchener Central Transit Hub moves forward. But what it's about is moving people out of their home, rudimentary as that home may be, moving people out of their homes at Weber and Victoria. So that site where the largest encampment in our region has been for almost a little over 3 years now, but by the time it's cleared at the end of December, it'll mark about 4 years since the first resident took up occupation on that busy street corner in Kitchener. Imagine that. It was January of 2022 when this saga began. And then by the spring of 2022, so 3 years ago roughly now, that encampment, that corner was full of people in tents, dozens living there. And here we are all this time and all these years later. And now, under the guise, if you will, of moving forward with the Central Transit Hub, the region of Waterloo wants to get those folks off that land. This story, it pulls me in every single direction. I know, like you, that we don't want to see people suffer. We don't want people to be moved from a place that they are safe and secure. And at the same time, I think we understand that we can't have something like this in our city permanently, right? One of the other things that bothers me about this, and I've expressed it before, is over these last 3 years, I mean, I credit the nearby businesses that have kind of quieted down, just decided, well, we're going to suck it up and have to deal with this, because there were many concerns raised early on from business owners in the area. Community members would talk about their concerns around the encampment, and ho-hum, it was just status quo. Oh, the encampment's here. The street corner is going to be full of tents and makeshift shelters. Just deal with it, because this is the homelessness crisis right before our eyes. But now that the region needs the land, or Metrolinx, the provincial transit agency, needs the land, now we can clear it. I'm not cool with that. I'm also not really cool with the challenge that this is. We know that there are shelter spaces available that some folks just say, no, that doesn't work for me. I can't go there because I have an intimate partner. I can't go there because I have a pet. I can't go there because they don't allow drug use. I can't go there because I don't feel safe there. Myriad reasons have been presented for people saying this street corner is where I want to stay. This is where I have safety and security of person. And so, according to the Ontario Superior Court ruling, we cannot force them from that land, which again is a real struggle, because I think we all recognize that a tent is no way to make a living, especially in the wintertime. But we're not those folks. We're not the ones whose only option becomes that tent on a street corner. As I said, this pulls me in so many different directions. Mostly, it's frustration. If I have one hope in all of this, it's that it is a provincial transit agency, Metrolinx, that wants to do the work to build the transit hub. And maybe the province will wake the hell up here and realize they have underfunded municipalities in this province. They have uploaded or downloaded services. We're being asked as municipal taxpayers to fund services that we have no business being involved in. We cannot, frankly, bluntly, afford to do this. And now we've got this struggle over human rights and charter rights, and it's just an awful spot to be in. The province has got to come forward with more money, and heart hubs, I'm afraid, just aren't going to cut it. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I got an email from Clinton who writes to Mike at 570news.com. Good morning, Mike. It might sound harsh, but I support the city's bylaw to clear the encampment at Weber in Victoria. The city is providing alternative housing, so it's not as if people are being abandoned without options. To those who were passionately criticizing the city in the clips you played this morning, if they feel so strongly about keeping these encampments, why not open up their own private lands, backyards, or properties to host them? It seems acceptable to some that people take up residence on public land, but I doubt they'd be as comfortable with the idea of tents appearing in their own yards. Just a thought, Clinton. I appreciate the email, Clinton. And I remember that coming up at a Hamilton council meeting in the last year or so. One of the councillors suggested that very same thing. If my fellow councillors are in support of continuing with these encampments, maybe you can offer up space on your own properties. Look, this is where I also struggle in this conversation because folks like Clinton may email or call a show like this. They might, I don't know, but they might register their thoughts with their regional councillor. But what I think we end up getting is a discussion around a council horseshoe like we had last night at regional council, and folks who are strongly supportive of our unsheltered community. They're passionately appealing for their safety, and I get it. But I would love to know if we could ask every person in this region, where would we land on this? How where we need to put the focus is here. How can we best support these folks and still move forward and make progress in our community? How can we do both of those things? And I'm not sure there's an answer for it. There's certainly not an easy answer for it. And the region, with this attempt to create the site-specific bylaw, is finding that out, as if it didn't already know. Very complex situation. All right, I have to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then the passing of Pope Francis has a deep impact on a local man who, by the way, is on his way back to Rome. You'll hear from him and the impact of the Pope's passing coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I think many, if not most or all of us, were impacted by the passing of Pope Francis. Easter Monday at the age of 88. It seems just fitting that he would make it through the Easter celebrations and then pass on Monday. And the impact that many of us, most of us, have felt perhaps is no more acute than in a man born and raised in Elmira, local sculptor Tim Schmaltz. I would suspect has felt this more than most because of his close personal relationship with the now late Pope Francis. And Timothy Schmaltz joins the show this morning. Let's just start with the how in this case, Timothy. How did you learn of Pope Francis's passing?
Well, it was interesting because I was scheduled to go over to Rome actually this weekend because there's a new saint being canonized. And all of a sudden I got the alert from the Vatican early in the morning that Pope Francis passed away and that everything was suspended for the Jubilee. And so I was pretty shocked, actually.
How did you develop the relationship that you did with Pope Francis?
Well, I would have to say my relationship with Pope Francis started with a sculpture that I created called The Homeless Jesus. And actually, almost as soon as he became the Pope, I created that sculpture, which was all about the idea of care and love for the most marginalized. It's a representation of Jesus on a park bench as a homeless person. And it seemed to be totally in sync with the ideas that Pope Francis had, that he wanted to make us all much more compassionate and see the sacredness in everyone. So after I created that piece, it became very popular, and I had the opportunity to present it, a model of it, to Pope Francis, and that was my first encounter.
Some described that particular sculpture, Timothy, as controversial, yet Pope Francis gave it his blessing. What did that mean to you?
Oh, it was amazing. I thought it was very, very controversial at the time. And in fact, people were upset about a representation of Jesus as a homeless person. And some people loved it. Other people hated it. Some actually considered it very not only controversial, but absolutely wrong, a wrong depiction. So to have the small model brought to St. Peter's Square and have Pope Francis bless it was just stunning. And then also he told me that it's a beautiful and excellent representation of Jesus.
In the years since you got to know Pope Francis, and of course have continued to sculpt and create your art pieces, how has that relationship with Pope Francis formed the work that you do?
Oh, quite a bit. Actually, some of the very close people, including Cardinal Czerny, that work regularly with Pope Francis, see him on a day-to-day basis, would whisper in my ear ideas that I should actually discover through artwork, and so it was really interesting because I had the opportunity to give form to some of the key ideas of Pope Francis, or the key concerns.
How did you first even begin on this path of being a sculptor, Timothy?
Well, I went to Ontario College of Art. I dropped out. I moved back to Elmira, and I was kind of in an artistic crisis. I was doing real abstract artwork, and I thought, I want artwork to have some absolute meanings and have some function as well. So I looked at the great masters, the artists that I loved, like Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and I started to realize that what made their artwork brilliant is the subject matter. And in a sense, in order to have a masterpiece, you need a masterpiece subject matter. And I thought, what better thing than sculpt God and the saints? And so that basically started me when I was, I think, around 21. I kind of had this artistic conversion where most every piece I did was religious, dealing with epic subjects. And even if you look at the Kitchener Firefighter Memorial, which is one of the big earlier pieces that I did there in near the library in Kitchener and the art gallery, you see the spirituality in that. It's sheltered or framed. The whole scene, the whole sculpture is framed by angels. And oftentimes I think that the only way we can really express ourselves concerning deeper ideas is through the idea of spirituality and through that kind of language. And so, yeah, that's basically what I've been doing my whole life. And so to have a relationship with the Vatican where I have the opportunity to express and kind of give a face to that faith was just is an absolute privilege. In fact, when Pope Francis approved of the sculpture, the 20-foot sculpture, Angels Unawares, to be created life-size and put into St. Peter's Square, that must have been the highlight of my life.
Do you ever catch yourself, Timothy, just thinking back, you are internationally known and highly regarded as a sculptor. The piece you just talked about, Angels Unaware, being there at St. Peter's. Like, do you ever catch yourself and think back, this kid from small town Elmira, and look where you are?
Well, I'm so intense with my work and devoted to giving hands and feet to God and authentic representations to saints. It's almost like with my perception, I almost disappear from the scene. And whenever I have a sculpture that hits internationally, like the Homeless Jesus or the new sculpture that I just did, Be Welcoming, it's being placed around the world. I don't see it as much as my artwork being placed around the world, but that scriptural message being placed around the world, or Jesus being placed around the world. And I think that that's kind of coherent with what I believe in art. I think real artwork, the artist kind of disappears and the subject takes center stage. And so, yeah, I'm amazed at right now about how sculptures can really impact. But it's not really the sculptures; it's the scripture that's impacting it. And so that's what I'm very much excited about. And I feel like an instrument within the process. I oftentimes describe myself as an artistic soldier for the Vatican. And so, yeah, that's where I see myself.
We find ourselves now in this sort of in-between time as we mourn the passing of Pope Francis, prepare for the selection of the next pope. What about you in this period, Timothy? I know you're headed back to Rome. What do the next days and weeks look like for you in the aftermath of Pope Francis's passing?
Well, it's interesting because essentially just, 1 week ago, a sculpture was placed in St. Peter's Square, approved and appointed by Pope Francis himself. 1 week ago, it was installed. And it's a sculpture called Be Welcoming, which is another scriptural sculpture interpretation. And it's interesting because I don't even think I'll be able to see it because of the crowds of people that will be in St. Peter's Square. But I thought about this, and I'm still working on giving representation to some of his ideas, like Laudato Si, which is one of his great books about the concern for the environment. So, yeah, I have so much sculpture to do in my life here that I'll basically, as soon as I get back from Rome, continue to sculpt.
I really appreciate you making time for our show this morning. Thank you very much for joining me.
Well, thanks so much. Take care.
Timothy Schmaltz is a local sculptor, Elmira-based, on his way back to Rome today, probably as we speak, as he makes his way back. He was intending on being there anyway. And now, of course, in the wake of the passing of Pope Francis, with whom Timothy developed a personal relationship, the trip takes on, of course, even more meaning. How has Pope Francis's passing impacted you, if at all? I know we've got some deeply religious roots in this community, and not everybody was necessarily the biggest fan of Pope Francis because he was a little more liberal than some more devout Christians would have liked. Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I think real artwork, the artist kind of disappears and the subject takes center stage. I'm amazed at right now about how sculptures can really impact. But it's not really the sculptures, it's the scripture that's impacting it. And so that's what I'm very much excited about. I feel like an instrument within the process. I oftentimes describe myself as an artistic soldier for the Vatican.
What a way to describe oneself, an artistic soldier for the Vatican. Timothy Schmaltz, born, raised in Elmira, and still keeps a studio there where he creates sculptures that have been recognized and admired the world round. But he doesn't put himself as the artist, or doesn't think of himself as the artist in any way included in that final work. He is just the vessel through which the sculpture comes to life. Incredible stuff. And Timothy Schmaltz had a relationship with the late Pope Francis on his way back to Rome later today, and got his reflections on that relationship and how it formed his art over this past decade or so. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. It's been an interesting week. And I say that insofar as, or with respect to, the passing of Pope Francis, the pomp, the circumstance, where we are at today in that period of mourning, and then all of the talk about what it will be like. Yesterday there was a headline in the paper, the race to replace. It seems, I don't know, look, as somebody that is born and raised Catholic, went through our Catholic school system, I remember doing an elementary school project on the Pope when he was on a Canadian tour. That was John Paul II. And I've always, I guess I just, as a kid, certainly, my image of the Pope wasn't, somebody who was appointed, elected. There was no sort of dues being paid to replace him. The Pope was just kind of the Pope. I guess I never really thought about it as much as I do now at this age and stage of life. And of course, we know we will wait for that white smoke to appear from the smokestack to determine that the new Pope has been selected. And the impact, though, that he has on the world remains profound to this day, all of these thousands of years later. So a big moment for our world as we move through this period of mourning and then into the process of selecting the next Pope, the next head of the Catholic Church. We are also on a much different level getting ready to select a new person to lead us in this country. Voting day is April the 28th. That is Monday. And in order to provide you with the very best information, the most information that we can, we have reached out to candidates across this community and asked them to answer 3 simple questions. Everybody got the same question. It wasn't a debate. It was just a way for us to learn more about them. So why are you running in this election? What experience do you bring to the role? And what do you pledge to do for the people of your riding should they elect you? We'll hear from the Conservative candidate in Kitchener South, Hespeler, right after this break as we continue the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Election Day is Monday, just 4 days away, and in our ongoing effort to provide you with as much information as possible, we reached out to our local candidates. Every one of them, offered them the chance to just come on the show. We recorded these, but that they could give you more information about them. They all got the same questions. They got them in advance. Pretty simple process, but just so you can hear directly from those candidates. And our reporter Justine Fraser helped us put these together. This morning, we get the chance to hear from the Conservative candidate in Kitchener South, Hespeler, Matt Strauss.
Matt, just tell me a little bit about why you chose to run in this election.
So I was born in Kitchener. I grew up in Hespeler. I've been a physician in the community for the last 13 years. This community struggles are my struggles, and I think we can all acknowledge that the struggles have gotten a lot more intense over the last 10 years. So housing costs have doubled. The cost of living is out of control. Previously safe neighborhoods are now seeing crime waves. And it is my belief that these are because of discrete policy failures by the current federal government. So I feel like I know how to fix these things. I feel like I'm on a strong team with the Conservative Party that has some concrete policy proposals to fix these things, and I feel that it's urgent that we fix these things.
What experience do you bring to the role that you'd like to let your constituents know about?
So as I mentioned, I've been a physician in the community for the last 13 years. I had a role in hospital administration. I was the chief of the ICU at Guelph General Hospital for the last 5 years, done nights and weekends at Grand River over the period. I've been a teacher. I was a professor at the McMaster Regional Campus at Waterloo. I've also been a public health official for the last half of the pandemic. It was an occasion where I saw that government policy wasn't optimal, and I thought I could make a big change. So I worked in Haldeman, Norfolk, which is about 45 minutes south of here, on increasing vaccine uptake and protecting folks from the pandemic that was going on. And at the end of deploying that approach of open, honest communication that was consent-focused, we had a 30% lower COVID mortality than the provincial average. So I'm really proud of that record. It taught me a lot of things about community building, communication, and making an impact through advocacy. So those are the sorts of skills and experience that I'd want to deploy in the service of the residents of Kitchener South Hespeler.
What will you do if the people in Kitchener South Hespeler do decide to elect you this month?
I'll be very grateful, and I'll get to work. As a physician, I'm used to working 8-hour work weeks, and I will deploy all of that energy in their service. It'll take a little bit of time to learn the ropes of the job, I'm sure, if I were to get to Ottawa. But we have so many urgent priorities. So we need to repeal the laws that have caused the crime wave, the catch and release laws. We need to repeal the laws that have choked our energy sector and really put our economy in a bad situation. We need to build houses like mad to bring down the cost of living and the cost of housing for everybody. And then obviously healthcare is very close to my heart given my occupation and my work experience. And folks in this community and all across the nation are not getting proper healthcare right now. So we need to restore transparency and accountability to our public healthcare system. That's a longer project, but that's something I'd be very passionate about, of course.
Matt Strauss is running for the Conservative Party in Kitchener South. Hespeler seeking your vote in next Monday's federal election. I've got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. Then elbows up. But where are our minds at? What should we be maybe reflecting on? We'll talk about that coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Your elbows are up, right? You're one of the people that bought one of those Canadian flags that caused a small business in Erin that specializes in those flags to run out of inventory, at least temporarily, as they dealt with the increasing demand. We told that story a couple of months back now, and it was one of the most popular stories of late on our radio station because everybody thought this was the coolest thing. So many people getting so invested in Canada. They're so patriotic all of a sudden. Does this renewed sense of patriotism, this increasing patriotism, also bring with it a chance for us to reflect? John Malloy, former Liberal MPP and cabinet minister, now the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College in Waterloo, joins us to talk about it. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Mike.
Are you reflecting?
Oh, I am reflecting. I think the explanation is Donald Trump. I mean, it's not a mystery, but I think it's fascinating that a number of years ago, and I'm sure you had shows on it on your program, we were talking about canceling Canada Day. We were ashamed of our country, and now I think because of Donald Trump, it's a few years later, and everybody's trying to outdo each other on how patriotic they are. I mean, people are writing columns in newspapers bragging about the fact that they've canceled their family vacation to the States. I mean, people are going around challenging people who might be purchasing the wrong product because it's made south of the border, that sort of thing. So I think it's fascinating that Donald Trump has seen this pendulum swing like this.
I couldn't agree more, and I've found myself reflecting in a similar manner on those columns that are written or the people that are posting online. I saw a couple interviewed on TV because they changed their plans to go to Disney World, and I thought, wow, what an interesting place we are at. And maybe, John, does this explain or tell us how complicated our history and our relationship with this country really is?
Oh, I think so. And you know, part of me hopes that some of the issues that were raised several years ago, particularly around Indigenous reconciliation, but also the way, we treat those in the margins in our society, I hope that's not all forgotten. At the same time, I think from our vantage point today, we can look back on that period and say, hey, we made some mistakes in that period, and let's not make sort of the mirror image mistakes now as we move forward.
I wondered about that too, because I'll just be honest. We took a trip just last week to Buffalo. It was planned well before all of this nonsense began, and I wanted really badly to see that Leafs game I got to see, which was great, and we loved it. But I felt a wee bit guilty for that, John, because I traveled across the border into the United States, spent some tourist money there, and then returned home. When we think about where we were 5 years ago, let's say, and where we are today, should we be cautious about, coming down too hard on this poor Farwell guy for making a trip across the border?
Oh, definitely. I mean, think of what happened a few years ago. Some very, very important issues were raised. And then I think I'm not saying across the board, but there were many examples where things just got out of control, where everything became performative, not just individuals, but groups and organizations and companies all tried to outdo themselves to say that they were the beacons of social justice. And very, very complex issues arose, which were simplified and then used to beat people over the head. So if you weren't 100% aligned with this agenda or that agenda on a variety of social justice issues, you were shamed, you were criticized, you were canceled. I mean, things really got out of control. And let's hope that, with a current wave of patriotism, we don't see this, that if someone decides for one reason or another that they're going to vacation in the United States, or they're going to buy an American product, or they're going to continue to do business there. You know what? It's a complicated issue, and people have complicated reasons for doing it. So I think, we should cut people some slack and not engage in this performative finger pointing that we saw a few years ago.
Do you offer this as a warning, as we're just really on the, I think, beginning edges of this renewed patriotism, this increased patriotism? Are you trying to remind us, John, that, hey, look where we were 5-10 years ago. Let's not go back there.
No, exactly. And let's realize that Canada is a complicated country, and we have a complicated history, and we should be very, very proud of Canada, but we should also recognize the complexities and recognize those that were left out. And the other piece is, I'm sorry, it sometimes makes me a bit cynical that just as it was back then, as it is today, people are finding a way to commodify this stuff. If I have to look at another ad for whatever that claims they're Canadian owned and it's Canadian and shop Canadian, even if most of the products on their shelves were made in China, but everybody is going out to be how Canadian they are in order to attract customers, in order to get a profile. I mean, sometimes it's not just for money; it's getting profile on social media. It's perhaps being hired as certainly in the area of journalism or academia. That was a big thing a few years ago, and I think it could come again. I mean, let's all take a deep breath. I mean, it's ironic that one of the ways that we define ourselves as Canadians is that we're not the sort of jingoistic, my country, right or wrong Americans. So let's not fall into that trap. I'm certainly not saying we shouldn't be proud of our country, we shouldn't support our country, we shouldn't try to adopt practices and policies that are going to bring the United States back to the table and get a proper deal. But just as there were some craziness a few years ago, let's hope that craziness is limited now.
Is it okay right now to wrap ourselves in that Canadian flag again?
I think it is, but in a Canadian way, that sees some balance. I mean, listen, I think there's a consensus we're going to have to reimagine our country because our country has been so closely tied for certainly since the 80s to the United States economically, but even before then. So if we're reimagining our country, it can't be our country right and wrong. I think there have been some mistakes in the past. There are some people who are on the margins, and we're going to have to remember them and come up with a new idea of Canada that doesn't forget them and that doesn't just sort of get into this my country right or wrong. So let's be Canadian about it. Let's be balanced about it. The other thing is the Trump administration, what's been going on. Of course, we're all highly critical of it, but we're talking about a nation that we've been friends with for many years. We have personal friends, personal connections. Let's all take a deep breath before we boo a little too loudly to the U.S. national anthem. I mean, things can get out of control. It did a few years ago, and I think it can now.
Great points all around, John. And as always, appreciate your time on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
John Malloy is a former Liberal MPP and cabinet minister, now the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College. It sounds like a very moderate, centrist perspective on all of this, doesn't it? And I would hope that's where we can all land here. I would hope. Listen, when John talks about where we were at 5-10 years ago around canceling Canada Day, for example, I'll just be honest. I lost friends over that because I disagreed with the cancellation of Canada Day festivities. I felt it was on the performative side. And if I wanted to still celebrate Canada while acknowledging its complex past, I thought that's where I was at. But there were some who I considered friends that were more than happy to just push me aside. And that's okay. Like, I guess I can get over it if I'm actually over it by saying it out loud. But that's a choice for sure. And it's the same now where I've said consistently from the beginning, I don't agree with booing the U.S. national anthem. And yeah, we still took our trip to the States. And I think that if you're looking at somebody that makes that trip to the U.S. and you look down your nose at them, you might be carrying this end of it too far. And that mushy middle is kind of I think that's where most of us are, actually. I really think most of us are in that mushy middle. But if you can commodify your patriotism right now, if you can get likes and retweets or whatever we call them now, but reposts on social media because of your firm stance about this or that, and, you know, I canceled my vacation, I'm the most patriotic. Like, aren't we running that risk of going too far in that direction? I think this is an interesting cautionary tale from John Malloy. Your elbows are up, right? How do you feel about it? Is it okay to wrap yourself in that Canadian flag? How patriotic are you feeling these days? Always like to hear from you on the show. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Things really got out of control. And let's hope that with the current wave of patriotism, we don't see this, that if someone decides for one reason or another that they're going to vacation in the United States, or they're going to buy an American product, or they're going to continue to do business there. It's a complicated issue, and people have complicated reasons for doing it. So I think, we should cut people some slack and not engage in this performative finger pointing that we saw a few years ago.
Oh boy, do I like the sounds of that. John Malloy, who is a former Liberal MPP and cabinet minister, now the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College, wrote an op-ed several days ago. I'll quote from it. "It seems like only yesterday that loud voices were calling for the cancellation of Canada Day due to our country's shameful past. Fast forward to today, and it seems that everyone is trying to outdo themselves in the patriotism department. Buying Canadian, flying the flag, and chastising anyone who vacations in Florida." You do you, right? And listen, if you want to wrap yourself in the Canadian flag, but I want a vacation in Florida, I don't think we have to shun somebody outright because of that, right? They don't need to be shamed for that. Certainly we can find some sort of happy medium here, can't we? 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Your elbows are up, right? We're all feeling pretty good. We're all feeling pretty patriotic. But if our neighbor decides to take that trip to the United States, we're not going to elbow them in the nose, are we? We don't have to do that. Let's go to the phones. Bob, good morning.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Bob.
Well, I've always been a proud Canadian.
Have you?
Yep. I know some people may not think so, but I have been.
Okay. And how do you define being a proud Canadian? What is Canada to you, Bob?
The right for women to choose.
That's an interesting place to start. The right for women to choose is Canada to you.
That's one of the good things, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
Oh, of course, Timmy's. I mean, you can't beat them.
Interesting reasons. Tim Hortons and the right for women to choose. That's two different ends of the spectrum, isn't it? Jason, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I think people got to be easy on the Americans there, especially all the liberal boomers that are trying to vote Carney in, because, I mean, their grandchildren are going to be Americans soon because they're going to have to move there to have any prosperity when they got to pay off the debt.
Listen, I've seen those liberal boomers on a new television commercial, and they think voting for Carney would be crazy. He's a clown, to quote the commercial.
Oh, I hope they wake up, because I know I've got my own family members that are older, and they won't get off CBC, and they're like, oh, we're going to stick it to Trump with Carney. It's like, no, you're going to stick it to your grandkids is all you're doing with Carney. So I hope people wake up.
All right. I think what Jason is alluding to is the economy. And I read an analysis like this through the lens of the C.D. Howe Institute. So we'll recognize the bias, if you will. It's a conservative think tank. However, you know me. I've long been a fiscal conservative, and this analysis suggested that red ink in Ottawa, the era is here, and it's not going away anytime soon. No costed platform shows any sign of balancing a budget. And traditionally, when it comes to election time and platforms being laid out for the public, there is a path to balance. I can't remember the last time it's been reached, but usually our election campaigns contain promises to balance budgets. That does not seem to be the case anymore for either red or blue. Interesting that. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. An email from Ilias to Mike at 570news.com. We need a Canadian flag in every corner of our cities, especially on businesses and stores. That way, when Trump comes to annex Canada, he'll see the red and white that's embedded in our hearts. Elias, thanks very much for the email to Mike at 570news.com. Let's go back to the phones. Wally, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Wally, I'm senior with a bucket list.
Oh, yeah? And what's on your bucket list, Wally?
The bucket list is getting people out to vote.
Oh, I like it.
And I have gone so far as I have a big sign on my wheelchair that says vote. And the small caption is for the sake of our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Now, I have great confidence in our children. They're very wise and knowledgeable. But we have to get out and vote. And I've been cruising the hallways and the sidewalks with my sign, encouraging people to vote. And they are receptive to it. And I think what we should tell them, some of them are hesitant. They should know that the people at the voting station are very knowledgeable and helpful. So don't be afraid to go.
All right, Wally. I appreciate that call. It is an easy process. The folks who work in those returning stations do a wonderful job. And yes, let's help fill Wally's bucket, shall we? Let's make sure we get out in great number to vote on Monday. What do you say? Who's with me? How about voter turnout better than 75%? Is that too optimistic? I think we can get there. Wally says his bucket list includes people voting. He's got the sign on his wheelchair. Let's fill Wally's bucket and make sure we get out to vote on Monday in our federal election. All right, it's coming up on 10:30 and your update in the 570 News Center. Then it's Thursday morning. That means Gary Chalk, humor columnist, will join us with Living Retired. What job would you like to avoid at all costs? If there was one job you could avoid forever and ever, amen, what would it be? We'll get the Living Retired complete list of jobs you should avoid at all costs coming up on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio.
Hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling.
I really like the music that we play to start this segment. A little bit of Blue Swede for you. That's the introduction to the humor column Living Retired, and it's Ooga Chaka, because the author of the Living Retired humor column is our good friend Gary Chalk. Not Chaka, but I don't think he'll mind if you call him Chaka. How do you? Can I use that as a new nickname? I'll call you Chaka from now on.
Well, I've been known in public school. In high school, they called me Chalker. Somebody called me Chopper, and one teacher he said Chalk.
Yes, of course. Now listen, you and I are close enough to the same era. There must have been pieces of chalk thrown to get your attention from time to time.
Well, there is a story. When I was in grade 12, they still had grade 13, and I ran for president of Students' Council, and we went out and bought a whole bunch of boxes of chalk, and we handed them out to everybody. Thought it was a great PR stunt until chalk fights broke out in all the halls of the school, and I was called down to the principal's office. True story, Mike.
I love it. Dave Lack, Mr. Lack, my grade 7 teacher at St. Anne's Elementary School. He was a chalk thrower, Gary Chalk.
What a beautiful day today.
Oh, my goodness. I'll take more of them, please. 30 or so.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I went to Horton's to get a coffee. I parked my car at the back of the lot. I thought I'd walk through this glorious sunshine. The air was beautiful. Held the door at the store for the next person in line. He said, "Oh, thank you." And I said, "A beautiful day." And he said, "Oh, it's going to be a scorcher."
Well, I guess as far as April the 24th is concerned, but it's about darn time from where I'm sitting.
Oh, I'm telling you. But, you talk about time. We're down now to 7 days. Count them, Mike. 7 days for Canadians to submit our income tax. We got a week.
Oh, dear. So all the last-minute Larrys get into your rush. Here we go.
Here we go. April 30th, it's National Income Tax Submission Day, which is also called Fudge the Truth Day. Let's be honest, you sort of look at, you sort of work it through. And I'm not making this, Mike, I do not make this stuff up at Living Retired. But next Wednesday, as I say, it's National Income Tax Submission Day. It's also, this is for real, National Truth Day.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Come on.
How do we end up with the final day we have to put our taxes in? It's also National Truth Day. Who approved that?
I guess the federal government probably did at one point because, they don't want tax cheats.
Exactly. Oh, my gosh. I started been looking into the Income Tax Act here. There's the theory of paying your income tax, and there's also the practice. It sort of boils down to the theory is when, people have some money left over after you've paid for all your necessities of life, your groceries, your transportation, your Netflix, the money that's left over, the government expects you to just send that in. And then what they do is they take all the money they collect, because we're a country with a lot of social services, they make sure that this money is dispersed to, a certain amount of it to the less fortunate people who have come across difficult times. This is mostly professional athletes whose careers were impacted by mandatory drug testing. Right?
We got to hold some garage sales for those folks. Yeah,
exactly. Do you look after your own taxes, your wife, or you get somebody to do them for you?
My beloved handles her own. I get somebody to look after her for me, Gary.
Oh, I tell you, I look at that tax form, and I see all the words. There's dependent, capital gain, net income, and then the one that I always get a kick out of, it's all these deductions that are, for individuals and families. And don't get excited, because those deductions, they apply to other people, their families, never you.
Well, this is why I finally gave up. And I said, I can't figure this nonsense out. And how am I supposed to qualify or deal with this and that? And that's why I need help, Gary.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the suggestion I would make, and maybe your wife is already doing it, it's important if you're doing your own tax form, the two things. One, always work in pencil. And that's not because you'll make some mistakes. It's for the obvious reason you don't accidentally poison yourself with ink from jabbing a pen against your leg when you get frustrated. So always work in pencil.
All right, good point.
Okay?
Thank you.
And the other thing, this goes back to last week, Mike, bubble wrap. Go out before you start, purchase a big roll of bubble wrap, and then wrap it all around your head. And what that does, it protects yourself when you repeatedly bang your head against the wall while you're filling out the income tax form.
Another excellent point by you. Good strategy.
And there's also a side benefit, too. If when you're working and you got all this bubble wrap all over your head, if the doorbell rings, it's one of those hot water heater salesmen. It'll scare the bejeebers out of them. They'll run down the street right away.
Yeah, they're not going to talk to bubble wrap guy.
The other thing, if you fill it out online, it comes to that point. This is the scary point, and it says, submit this amount. And at that point, I'm thinking, how am I supposed to come up with that much money? And then you just press submit. And the other thing that I found is when you complete your income tax and you send that check in, they take into consider some of the programs that they get. Like one of the things they've got is the mandatory long version census form. Did you ever have one of those?
Oh, I did.
Oh, had one a couple of years ago. The question, they went on forever. There was how many legal dependents are residing in your household who dye their hair like Wayne Newton. There was another one, another question they want. What's your wife's grandmother's body mass index? Right?
You're never supposed to ask a woman her body mass index, Gary. Come on.
Particularly your wife's grandmother.
Exactly.
Oh, my gosh. Anyways, speaking of tax preparers, Mike, there's a website. It's a Government of Canada website that outlines different job opportunities across the country. For the next 3 years, they break it down by province, and it actually indicates the future prospects for income tax preparers is to be very good. So there's a career that you could look at. And another report says these days people should be prepared to change jobs as many as 7 to 8 times in their lifetime. Now, if you think about that, Mike, is there a job you wouldn't want today?
Oh, my gosh. Take your pick, Gary. Okay. We'll think about those jobs we would never want. And you've got the Living Retired complete list, right?
Oh, I've got it here.
Okay.
It's here.
All right. Hang on, Gary. Gary Chalk joins us every Thursday morning at this time to bring his humor column to life, that column called Living Retired. You can find it online, livingretired.press. And while you're there, sign up to have the column delivered to your inbox weekly, because that's what you need in your inbox, the Living Retired humor column. What is the complete list of jobs you should avoid at all costs? We'll find out as we continue Living Retired with Gary Chalk this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Thursday morning at this time, Gary Chalk, the humor columnist, joins the show. His humor column is called Living Retired. I encourage you to find it at livingretired.press. Sign up while you're there. Have the column delivered directly to your inbox. Just before the break, we were talking about the complete list, the Living Retired complete list of jobs you should try to avoid at all cost. Gary, let me tell you, I will mow your lawn. I'll even ride the riding lawnmower if that's required, but I will not, under any circumstances, be your weed whacker whippersnipper guy. I can't stand that job.
Well, I don't mind cutting the grass. I don't mind that. What I do not like is raking.
Oh, the raking. I did some of that last weekend.
Oh, I only rake when the wind is blowing in the right direction to blow them all over onto my neighbor's yard. Otherwise, I'm not there.
Good job. Good job.
So, we have now the official Living Retired complete list of jobs you should try to avoid at all costs. You ready for this?
Yeah. Can we add laundry to it, by the way? I can't stand doing the laundry.
Okay, we'll add that as well. We'll see how it stacks up.
Yep.
So if you don't want to do the laundry, here's a job you may not want. It's the underarm deodorant tester. Right?
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I mean, somebody has to be responsible for ensuring underarm deodorants are doing their job. Some of them say it's 24-hour protection, whatever. Now, there is a qualification. It's only available or a job of interest of some people, but to be an underarm deodorant tester, you have to be able to enjoy people, particularly the armpits. So that's the one job you want to avoid at all costs.
I agree.
Okay. Would you agree? Now, this could be an interesting one for you. It's you want to avoid having to be a dog food taster.
You know, there have been times, Gary, where Princess Rosie, the pandemic pup, she looks at me with this funny, I'm like, what, you want me to try it for you first? But I love her so darn much, I might actually do it.
Oh, well, somebody has to do it. I'm telling you, wouldn't be me. There's a few others that I found were interesting. How many fortune cookies do you think are made every year around the world?
My gosh, that's I'll say 1 billion.
No, you said it wrong. Whenever you say the word billion, you're always supposed to say a billion with a B.
Okay, billion.
I don't know why. Well, you're wrong. It's 3 billion with a B.
Okay.
3 billion fortune cookies. That means, Mike, there are 3 billion little scraps of paper inside. Somebody has to write all those messages. Right? They got to hire these people to write the little message that gets inserted. Now, you got to have a very creative mind to do that. Qualifications include the ability to write a few words about somebody you have never met. And basically, it's just some gibberish that's meaningless. And the other thing is
it's a lot like this show, Gary. Like they could listen to this show and steal ideas for fortune cookies.
The other thing is that a fortune cookie writer is also an entry-level position for wannabe politicians because it's all gibberish that's in there. Okay?
Okay.
Now, here's the other one. Have you ever thought that you'd like to be a mascot for a sports team?
Honestly, yes.
Yeah. You have?
I love the mascot. Yes, I do. I think they're great.
Wow. How's your sense of balance? I mean, you got to be able to wear oversized hands, oversized feet, and a head that's the size of Prince Edward Island, and you can't trip.
A head the size of PEI. I love it. You're right. I have no qualification. I'm not athletic enough to do it, but gosh, mascots are great.
Well, the other thing, I'm just saying, I think a person who's a mascot has to have a very low self-esteem of themselves. You know, who wants to hide behind a big head?
Me.
The other thing, maybe you already had this. Maybe the other qualification, you have to have eyes that line up with the mouth of your costume.
Right.
Now, that's an important one. Otherwise, you're never going to get a job.
And that's one of the problems for me, Gary. Because I'm so short, it never works out that way.
Oh, I don't know. I've never tried. I just sort of look at them, and I used to like, the Philadelphia, the San Diego chicken.
Oh yes, I remember the San Diego chicken.
And the
I think he's still around.
Fanatic or whatever.
The Philly Fanatic. Yeah,
Philly Fanatic.
And what about Grizzy for the Philadelphia Flyers? He's great.
I haven't seen her.
Him. I think.
Well, how do you know? You can't see. No, you're talking about the mascot of the person who's inside.
Wow, this is the $1 million question, isn't it?
Hey, and there's one other. This is official. It's from as I say, the living retired complete list of jobs you should try to avoid at all cost. This is the person who works at Disney who runs the It's a Small World ride. Now, this person has to be content interacting with small children on hot weather, and for 8 hours a day, they just hear that song, It's a Small World, day in and day out. Oh, you got to be able to think about, you got to be able to talk about the kids, but under your breath so they don't hear you.
Exactly. Yes,
right?
You got to vent somehow, some way.
And there's one final one. This is from the official Living Retired complete list of jobs that you would want to avoid. And this would be, back to Tim Hortons, the person who ensures that every cup of coffee is 20 minutes fresh. I can only drink so much coffee, Mike, and I love Hortons coffee, but every time I would take some more and some more and some more, I'd be on edge, just making sure that my customers were getting 20-minute fresh coffee.
And listen, you don't want those Grumpy Tim's customers. Come on.
You don't want them. I mean, and after all, this is Canada. There are no Grumpy Tim's customers.
Exactly. Let's just go with that theory. Gary, thank you for guiding us in the right direction as always.
Doing our best.
Talk again soon.
Go Rangers, go.
Go Rangers, go. Gary Chalk, the humor columnist that writes Living Retired. You can find it online, livingretired.press. While you're there, sign up for the column. It can be delivered directly to your inbox. And then with all the memos from the boss and the other scuttlebutt that shows up in there. You can have a chuckle. It's good. It's worth it. LivingRetired.press. Gary Chalk, the author of the Living Retired humor column, joins us every Thursday morning at 10:30 on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. When we were chatting with Gary Chalk a moment ago, the author of the humor column Living Retired, he talked about the beautiful day that it is. He parked far away from the door to his favorite coffee shop, and as he held that door for the next person coming into Tim's, that person said, "It's going to be a scorcher." Listen, just settle down, okay? Pump those brakes. I mean, yes, maybe by April 24th standards, it's going to be a scorcher, but is it really? Like, come on here. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for weather like this. My buddy from Environment Canada says the record temperature set on this day, April the 24th, was 1 century ago. So April the 24th, 1925 on this day, we reached 27.8 degrees Celsius. Can we top that today? Can we nudge it up to 27.9 or dare I say 28 degrees today? We are on our way to a mid-20s high. It's going to be beautiful. It's already beautiful. According to Environment Canada, 18 degrees as we speak. On this day in 1925, we got to 27.8. Let's keep our eyes on the temperature and see if we can set a new temperature record for April the 24th. I'm here for it. I am here for it. It's going to be a beautiful day. As I said, it already is. Enjoy as much of it outdoors as you can. This is long overdue from where I'm sitting. Would love to see us set that temperature record today. All right, we're fast approaching 11 o'clock, your update in the 570 News Center. Don't forget, along with Living Retired, a regular segment every Thursday, the Flip Side is coming up in 30 minutes' time. I'm going to put a theory that my buddy has to the test. He says he knows why everybody's favorite decade is what it is. So on the Flip Side this morning, the question is a simple one. What was the best decade and why? And we'll see if my buddy's theory holds up. Right after this update from the 570 News Center, though, we are banding together against diabetes. The story coming up. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is such an exciting time of year. The weather starts to improve. The events calendar starts to fill up. And I'm really excited to be talking about this next one because, in fairness, Christy's an old friend of mine. Not old in that sense. Just, you know.
Well, I hope not.
No, well, if you're old, then I am. And I can't have that. Okay. So, okay. Actually, I am old. You just haven't aged one little bit. And I love the reason behind this. So, joined in studio by Christy Miller, who is the organizer of the fundraiser Band Against Diabetes. Nice to see you.
Always nice to see you.
I like how you get to sneak off work a little bit and come into the studio. So good. And Christy brings with her today Dr. Lara Green, who's the National Manager of Research and Training Programs with Breakthrough T1D Canada. Lara, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Can we start with that Breakthrough T1D Canada? I think we're rebranding a little bit here when it comes to the issue we're talking about.
We are formerly JDRF.
Right.
So for over 50 years, we've been known as JDRF, or even before that, JDF. But the JD was juvenile diabetes, and we do not call it juvenile diabetes anymore. And we also have to realize that those juveniles that were diagnosed as children are now adults like Christy with diabetes still. So we are now Breakthrough T1D, new name, same mission.
Why the rebrand? Why the name T1D?
A lot of people thought that we were only doing research focused on pediatrics. And that's not true at all, actually. A huge portion of our research, the majority of it, is focused on the adults that live with type 1 diabetes. And also, really important, everyone thinks that type 1 diabetes is only diagnosed in childhood. Sometimes if you say, I have diabetes, they'll say, oh, which one? The one that you get as a kid? That's pretty common.
Every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
So actually, about 70% of diagnoses of type 1 diabetes are in adults.
Come on. Now, see, that does stun me.
Yeah, 70%.
Okay.
I think that comes from, the shock comes from the fact that when it's diagnosed in adulthood, it hits a little, not quite as hard. So the diagnosis happens a little slower, and the misdiagnosis rate is huge. So a lot of adults misdiagnosed as type 2 diabetes. They can't figure out why the type 2 meds aren't working great for them. You know, they're seeing a couple different doctors over a few years until finally somebody goes, let's check your autoantibodies. It's actually type 1 diabetes. You have an autoimmune disease. So that's part of the rebrand. Breakthrough T1D. It's type 1 diabetes. It happens to all ages and stages of people. We know people diagnosed into their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s. And it is an autoimmune disease, so not juvenile.
So important to know. And Christy, you are among those who was diagnosed with type 1 as an adult.
That's right. Yeah, I was 21. So, and I know we've talked this out before, but I mean, again, like Dr. Green said, total shock, right? Because we had no idea what this was. We had no family history as far as we knew anyways. I think that's a big part too. Like, I think because of misdiagnoses and stuff, maybe there was this somewhere in our family at some point. But at that point, at 21, it was a total shock to me and to my family and to everybody around us. It's crazy.
How were you ultimately diagnosed? What was going on that led you to the diagnosis?
Oh, this is a good one. So I was actually, I was in university. I was in third year university. I had actually gone with a friend. We were going to London for the weekend. That part doesn't matter. But I remember driving on the highway being like, hey, when we hit exit whatever, tell me. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. The signs are just blurry. Just tell me where I'm supposed to get off. And, you know, now looking back on it, the signs and symptoms, now that we know them, were all very clear, but we didn't put them together. I thought for some reason I needed to go to the optometrist. I needed to check my vision. I'd had 20/20 vision my whole life. And I'm asking her to, you know, tell me the exit because the signs are fuzzy, right? Went out that night, as 21-year-olds do, and spent most of the night, like, drinking under the tap at my friend's house and being like, this is not right. So I went to the doctor the following Monday. She was like, I couldn't tell you what this is, like, totally clean bill of health. We're just going to start blood work and see. And then immediately it was that. It was like my sugar came back at 27, I think, 28. I'll get corrected. Somewhere around there. 4 times what it's supposed to be. So it was very clear that this was a case of type 1 diabetes. And then the shock piece came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after the shock piece, though, then you're a 21, 22-year-old adult that needs to learn to live with type 1 diabetes.
Totally. Yeah. And then I'm, as you are, and 21, I'm in university. Like, I think a lot of people in their first... maybe it lasts longer. Who knows? A little bit of shame, like not wanting to like check your sugar, do your insulin out in public. Like you just want to do what everyone else is doing. So, I mean, I think maybe for an adult, there is that piece, but like for a kid, somebody else is managing that for you. So there's that piece. But it was a total lifestyle change. Right. I wouldn't say like total lifestyle change, but yes, like trying to figure out how to get all the pieces moving so that I felt okay again was a big learning curve.
And now, of course, as a mother, you have that child to also help navigate this. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk more about that and then get into how your event calendar is filling up. Trust me on that. Stay with us. Christy Miller and Dr. Lara Green in studio with us this morning. We're talking about T1D, type 1 diabetes, and the Band Against Diabetes fundraiser that's coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In studio this morning with Christy Miller, who's the driving force behind the Band Against Diabetes fundraiser. Dr. Lara Green is with us as well, National Manager of Research and Training Programs with Breakthrough T1D Canada. We'll get to the Oscar story, Christy's son, in a moment. But diagnosed as an adult, which we've shared that story. And then, you talked about how when you're dealing with it, you take care of yourself. It's not like when you're a child and somebody else helps out. And of course, you've been supporting Oscar through his journey. But Lara, it occurs to me that I guess on the plus side of this, it is something, type 1 diabetes in general, that we can manage, at least for a time.
Yeah, we manage it with insulin.
Right.
So to be fair, that's the same thing we've been managing it with for just over 100 years. And while that's gotten better with different versions of insulin, and while our monitoring methods have gotten better with continuous glucose monitors, which are those little patches you sometimes see on somebody's arm, and an insulin pump, it's still never going to be perfect. And it's still a massive amount of day-to-day burden. So really the ultimate goal and the goal of Breakthrough T1D, our research program, is to find a cure, which would be replacing those cells that are supposed to be doing the work in your body and unfortunately were attacked and killed by the autoimmune system.
So fundraising, the likes of which happens with Band Against Diabetes, obviously really important. Where are we at on that research spectrum, if you will?
Yeah, it's starting to get exciting. You know, I came in this time last year, and even in 1 year, we're seeing changes. So oftentimes in the science world and in clinical trials, we say, every 5 or 10 years, we're seeing exciting things, but we're on sort of a year-to-year basis of exciting things now. So we are seeing a clinical trial that has progressed through the phases. A clinical trial happens in 3 phases, phase 1, 2, and 3. And one of those, run by industry, has now progressed into phase 3 of replacing those beta cells in adults with type 1 diabetes to the point where people are now insulin-free for over a year. So they are making their own insulin again. But it does come at a trade-off at the moment. The trade-off is immunosuppression because you've got to prevent the body from attacking those cells. For some people, that's not a good trade-off. You don't want to trade type 1 diabetes for a lifetime of immunosuppression. But for some people, that trade-off is worth it. So the research really needs to keep moving forward on how we can replace those cells without having any immunosuppression. And that really changes the balance of the cost-benefit ratio.
Christy, I know it's
sign me up.
No, but it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah,
and I'm on the email list now, the mailing list, and I love getting the information. And yes, there is reason for optimism. There's reason for excitement. You've been managing this as an adult, and then along comes Oscar.
Right.
How has his journey been?
Well, at the beginning, again, it was shocking, but then after he wasn't well, same signs and symptoms. Our spidey senses said, we have a pretty good feeling that this is, the beast we already know. Similar kind of story with diagnosis. But I mean, even like Dr. Green was saying, even the technology that, we've had in my lifetime of diabetes and Oscar's has been so large. So we were both, pens and injections. And I didn't have a glucose monitor for probably the first 10 plus years of my diagnosis and my type 1 journey. Oscar did pens and injections for about a year and a half. And we had an incredible nurse at the hospital, and she got him on a pump when he was just turning 3. So he's been on a pump for, his birthday is on fundraiser day, but he's been on a pump for 8 years already. So he hasn't had to do any of those injections. We haven't had to do them. He has both a glucose monitor and a pump, the same as me. Like Dr. Green said, it's not perfect. The catch of it is that insulin keeps us alive, but if it's you give yourself too much, it's also deadly, right? So it's the thing that saves you every day, but it also can be the thing that takes you down. So I'm sure people in the type 1 community have experienced this before. We had it not too long ago with Oscar, just too much insulin and then shaking uncontrollably. It's scary on some points, right? And we're 10 years into this, 8 years into this for him, and we've never had that happen until 2 months ago. So, yeah, it's crazy.
His birthday, as you said, is on fundraiser day, which
Wouldn't be a day if I didn't get emotional.
It's okay. That's absolutely allowed.
I'm always going to do it without, but I never do. I'm working on it.
Every year, Christy tells me, this time I come in Farwell, I'm not going to get emotional. Oh, sure you aren't, Christy. Sure you are.
Yeah, okay. Well, come by it, honestly.
You do. May the 3rd, not this Saturday, but next
Saturday.
Oscar's birthday and Band Against Diabetes Day. How many years is this now?
This is the 4th year for this event. So for the BAD event, the band night, the silent auction, all the things. But we've been fundraising for JDRF now, Breakthrough T1D, since I think 2019. So it's kind of been a journey for us to get to this point too. But our main event is our sole focus this year. In the past, we've done a few offshoots of the main event leading up to it. And we just decided this year that we need to just go at it just for this all in for the main event, which is, as you said, Saturday, May 3rd.
Okay. Now, I just want to be clear. It's not a bad event. It's a very, very good event. Bad is Band Against Diabetes. Right. I just don't want anybody to misunderstand.
Just a play on words.
That's right. And I like that. Okay. What's happening? What's happening on Saturday, May the 3rd?
So Saturday, May 3rd, we're downtown this year at the museum in downtown Kitchener. We have 4 bands. We have, I was just saying before, a silent auction that seems to be growing by the day. So managing, it's the worst problem to have ever, but a giant silent auction, door prizes. It's honestly just every year that we do it. There's some people who make it every year, but there's ebbs and flows. We're adding people. I've met a lot of really cool people through the community too that have really kind of caught on. We have a couple people walking with us this year. The main idea here is that all the ticket sales, all the silent auction money, all the money goes to our walk page. Everything that we earn goes toward all the research and projects that Breakthrough 2ND are working on. And so we do the main event and have a giant party, and it's great people, great food.
Can we still
sponsors.
Get tickets?
You can still get tickets. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And it's 4 bands, silent auction, door prizes, all for $50.
And snacks.
Yes. It's perfect.
It's a great night. You can't go wrong.
I think one of my coworkers here is in one of the bands.
He is. Yeah,
I thought
he
so.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is. It's great. I can vouch for him. He's an okay guy. Dr. Green, what does fundraising support, events like this, awareness raising mean to Breakthrough T1D?
Everything.
Yeah.
We are donor funded. We are donor driven, donor funded. So it primarily supports research. That's our biggest mission portion. So in Canada, 75% of our research dollars last year went towards cures research. And about 25% go towards that improving lives research. So, the mental health component, because we've seen from Christy, there's a big mental health component, and things like making devices better, getting more medications. And then also some of those funds go to support advocacy work. So getting access to those new therapies is a big thing. In Canada, we have a universal healthcare system, but then that's negotiated by every single province and territory. And that doesn't include medications, and that doesn't include devices. So that's a huge component of our work.
That's huge.
And then community engagement. So making sure that people with type 1 find their community. And that's something that we support as well.
Christy, where can we find information, get tickets?
Great. You can find us on Instagram at Band Against Diabetes.
Perfect.
That's the easiest way. We have paper tickets still. So if you want to get tickets, if you want to DM us through that Instagram page, one of our team members will be happy to get you tickets or set up pickup for you. Either way, we want you there, so we'll make it happen. And that's it. So just reach out. You can follow us on that Instagram handle and send a message and get your ticket, because we'd love to meet you, and the more the merrier. We love a party. So let's do it for a good cause.
That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a party on a Saturday night at the museum in downtown Kitchener for a good cause.
You got it.
Instagram, Band Against Diabetes. Christy Miller, Dr. Lara Green. Thank you both for being here. Thanks for what you're doing. Yep. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so
very much.
Yeah, excellent.
It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. All right, Thursday mornings, 11:30, which we are just reaching. We do a little thing called the flip side, take a break from some of the heavier stuff, have a little bit of fun. I like to call it a palate cleanser. And when we do that palate cleanser this morning, right after this update from the 570 News Center, we're going to put my buddy's theory to the test. Now, in fairness, I think he's onto something here. He might even be right, as difficult as that is for me to admit that my best friend is right about something. But he seems to think he knows why people pick the best decade ever the way that they do. So it's a pretty simple, if not strange question. What was or is, if the decade we're in is the best decade, fine. What was the best decade that you've lived through? And why? I want to hear the answer to that question on the flip side. Coming up, we'll put my buddy's theory to the test. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Sorry, I know I took a little bit of time there. The music played on a little bit, but I thought I'd put the theory to the test because I had one of my coworkers poke his head into the studio. We had a good chat. It started with, let me tell you what happened to me by way of discipline in school back in the day, because I was talking earlier about having chalk thrown at me. But I don't care. You can let your heart bleed all you want. It's harmless. I got hit with the chalk too. Guess what? I deserved it. Deserved to get hit with a piece of chalk, yes. Even if it left an itty-bitty, teeny-weeny little mark. Stop it. Anyway, that might be a story or a topic for another day. But the theory that I put to the test was my buddy's theory. Because we were hanging out the other week and we got to chatting. And we both agreed almost simultaneously. I think we were talking about a movie that we had both enjoyed. But it led to his conclusion. And he said that the 80s were great. And I said, I've been thinking a lot about that. And I could not agree more. The 80s were fantastic. Corny as all get out. Like, you think back on movies, TV shows from the 1980s, and for the most part, they're almost unwatchable now, save for the nostalgia of it all. But we both agreed that the 1980s were hands down the best decade ever. We didn't give a tinker's darn about a tinker's anything. Things were bright and colorful and happy. Remember all the neon we wore, the video arcades that had all the great noises and sounds in them, etc., etc. The music was upbeat, poppy, syrupy even. It was fantastic. And then you think of just the complete lack of care that went into movies, right? They all were based on absolute stereotypes, and we didn't care because we didn't know any different, right? The 80s were so carefree, so much fun, so bright and colorful, had to be, my buddy and I agreed, the very best decade. And then he said to me, this is why we think the 80s is the best decade. So I'll share the why after we go through this today. But I'm curious as to what you think was the best decade and why was it the best decade. I want to put my buddy's theory to the test. So before I tell you what his theory is, because I don't want you fudging the numbers, I think he's right, but just let us know on the flip side today. What was the best decade and why? 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Yuta sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. The 70s, Mike. The 70s were the best decade for the cars, the music, the lifestyle. I can get behind that, and you know me, musically, as much as I look at the 1980s and the upbeat, poppy nature, happy sounds coming out of our radios, the 70s, I am stuck forever in the 1970s when it comes to music. Hands down, in my opinion, the best. But the muscle cars, right? The lifestyle, the carefree 1970s, love who you love, hang out in a commune, I don't know. I want to know. So I sent Yuta a response to see if I can, to test my buddy's theory as to why she thinks the 70s were the best decade. Or, well, she said the cars, the music, the lifestyle. But there's another important part to this. I want to know from you, what was the best decade and why? Mark, good morning.
Hi, Mike. Your emailer stole my thunder.
70s?
70s were the best. A couple of reasons.
Okay.
First of all, housing prices were incredibly low. Anybody could buy a home back then.
Yep.
And secondly, the music, Mike.
The music for sure.
Was the best in the 70s.
You're right. The music, but I still liked the 80s better. I did. Okay. So
no, the 80s were too much. They got into this hip. I don't know. I don't know about the 80s, but 70s, Mike.
Okay. So let me ask you the question. I got to give away my buddy's theory here, Mark. Okay.
Sure.
In what decade were you a teenager?
Oh boy, that was when was I a teenager? Early 70s.
See? Okay, we're getting somewhere, Mark. Thank you for the call. Okay, so the cat's out of the bag already, but that was my buddy's theory. And we were both teenagers, our formative years in the 1980s. George, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Excellent, thank you. How about you?
Good. Mike, I was born in 63. The best decade for me is the 70s with a little spill into the 80s. Here's why. Into the early 80s, we had some great music come out with Rush and Genesis and Yes. So that, for me, was the best time. 70s with a little bit of early 80s.
Yeah, nailed it, George, and I appreciate the call. And so you hear George say, 1963. So he's a teenager, 70s bleeding into the 80s there a little bit, the music. But isn't it interesting? I think that's really what it comes down to. I think my buddy was right here, that we look back most fondly on the decade when we were teenagers. Because remember this, too. Okay, not to get too philosophical on you or too scientific. I don't think it's, we knew everything, didn't we? Teenagers, right? You knew everything and you didn't care about anything. We took the greatest risks because we didn't think of the consequences. We were going to live forever. We had all the answers to everything. We probably by that point had a job, so we had a little bit of money to do the things we wanted to do, like buy the music at a record store, go to the movies, right? Go to concerts. Drive a car. That's why I'm thinking. Kyle, good morning.
1980s, my friend.
1980s. Now, because you're a child of the 90s, are you not?
I was born in 1989, but I'm still a part of the 80s. I'm an 80s baby.
Okay.
I consider myself. But no, I mean, honestly, I've heard stories about my parents, and they said the 80s, and I grew up listening to 80s music, and I love it, and the synthesizers. And
yes, exactly. It's so bad,
right?
though. It's so bad it's good.
It's so I still listen to it. Like I still put on Styx and some of those bands that heavily influenced by the synthesizers. But I grew up in the early 90s, and you know what? Even I'm sure it goes to the 80s too. There's no cell phones. There's no internet. Your friends called you to hang out when you wanted to go play street hockey. Your parents gave you $10-15 to go to the movies, drop you off. It's just a simpler times, and there's no stress and things like that. So yeah, so I would say. I know that I was born in 89, but I'm still going to say 1980s, my friend Mike. I'm voting with that one as well.
All right.
My friend.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. A bit of an old soul. And I wondered if we would get answers like that today. Maybe you didn't live through the decade, but you're a bit of a history buff and you think that the Roaring 20s were the best decade, right? Or take your pick. You liked the, late 40s, early 50s because everybody was making babies, right? I don't know. The Industrial Revolution was the best decade. But it seems, as though, and my buddy's theory has held up pretty well in talking to people, that we tend to reflect on our best decade or what we think is the best decade based on when we were a teenager. And we might not think that as we're thinking of the best decade, but then you think, oh, was I a teenager then? Oh, I was. That's why it was the best. Greg, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike.
What was the best decade?
I'm going to have to agree with everybody, basically. The 80s.
The 80s?
Yeah, because that's when all the bands came out, Motley Crue, and you name it. It was the best.
Okay, so, and just for the music?
Well, yeah, I used to play in a band.
Did you? What band?
It was called Tear.
Tear. What instrument did you play?
Lead guitar.
Lead guitar in Tear. Now, you referenced Motley Crue. That was the first band that you brought up. You a heavy metal guy?
There's a lot of them. Black Sabbath.
You see, but now you're a heavy metal guy, Greg.
Oh, I am.
I love it. I love it. Good man. Thanks for the call this morning.
Okay, and go Rangers.
Go Rangers, buddy. Go Rangers. You know, the 1980s all of a sudden, maybe Kyle's onto something there too. It was the last decade before cell phones started showing up, right? My first phone was one of those brick phones. And, you know, with the big, we called them brick phones because you folded them up. They were about the size of a brick, had the big battery on the back, and it was work issued, company issue at the radio station I was reporting for at the time in Toronto. But that's late-ish 1990s. But the 80s, the last decade we had before all of the electronic interferences, right? Yeah, we had our Commodore 64s, or we call them the trash 80s, the TRS 80s from Radio Shack. The home computers, but they were beasts compared to what we're working with today. And so, yeah, if you wanted to see your friends, you'd go knock on a door or you'd pick up a telephone, right? The screens weren't quite as dominant. We spent a lot more time outdoors. Certainly, as Mark said, when he talked about the 70s being the best decade, cost of living was a heck of a lot lower. I loved the 80s. I loved the vibe. I loved the energy. I loved the color. I liked the music. I loved the 70s music. I like the music in the 80s. We didn't care. It was such a carefree decade, right? And then all of a sudden, we came to our senses or something like that. I tested this on another one of our coworkers earlier today. I should just tell you, Paul McPhee was in here just as we started this morning. I asked him, best decade, 80s. When were you a teenager? 80s. Right? So same idea. He said his Bruins won 2 Stanley Cups in the 70s, but yeah, he was not old enough to really appreciate that. It was the 1980s that were the best decade. And I asked Christine Clark, our morning news anchor, earlier today, and she said early 2000s, boy bands all the way. So when was she a teenager? Early 2000s. You see how this all works out? I think it's connected. When you were a teenager, you tend to look back on that decade as the best decade. Let me know. What was the best decade and why? Not just because you were a teenager, but was it the music? Was it the cars? Was it... You tell us. That's your question on the flip side this morning. The best decade was? This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It's a really simple question for you on the flip side today, but it's also intended to put to the test a theory a buddy of mine had. We were chatting the other day. We got to talking, I think it was about a movie in the 80s, whatever it was, the 80s came up, and he said, the 80s were great. And I said, you know, and this is true, I had been thinking about that, and I have come to the conclusion that the 80s were the best decade ever. And so my buddy and I go back and forth on that a bit, and then we end up agreeing. And then he says, you know why? I think it's because we were teenagers in the 80s. But I look back on it, everything was just so simple. The formula for TV was simple. The movies were big and bright and over the top, which was actually the name of a 1980s movie with Sylvester Stallone when he played an arm wrestler. The music was light. The clothes were bright. Remember all the neon we would wear? I don't know. It just seemed like everything was brighter and easier, far more carefree. What was the best decade? That's the question we're asking you on the flip side this morning. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Ron, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Farwell. I have to go with the 80s also. I mean, I was born in the 70s, but I mean, all the TV shows, all the fun. Like that one show that you love, Magnum P.I.
Absolutely. Oh, my gosh, with Magnum P.I. Yes.
So when you think about it, the 80s like I was a kid still in the I was a young kid still in the 80s. So I remember being out late at night. Parents didn't really care as long as you were home for dinner. It was a time that we were more carefree and not have to worry about the problems we have nowadays.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true, Ron. I appreciate that. If I can connect it to another movie, Pleasantville. Did you see that one? And basically, as the young people in the movie come of age, they move from black and white to color characters in the film. But what it really comes down to me, is what Ron, I think, alludes to. The more you know, like ignorance really is bliss, because the more you learn, you realize, man, maybe we shouldn't have perpetuated that stereotype so much. And boy, that kind of language we used was really, really, but when you don't care and when you don't know any better, you tend to look back pretty fondly, don't you? Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks.
Good. What was the best decade?
I think the 70s definitely were, especially with the music.
I can't argue with that.
But I grew up teenage at the late teens, starting in the 80s. But definitely the 70s with the music and the carefree and just the whole vibe.
You smoke any pot, Paul?
Oh, a little bit.
Thanks for the call. That's part of the 70s vibe, isn't it? It's okay. Now, imagine that. 50 years later, any street corner, legally. Brenda, good morning.
Good morning. I like the 80s. I grew up in the 80s. I had 6 posters in my bedroom. I've always been the heavy metal and Motley Crue, Def Leppard.
Were those the posters you had?
The posters, yeah. And Kiss in full gear, and went to many concerts. Now, we didn't have to smoke pot, but we could smell it. So
you got some secondhand.
It's a secondhand effect. So we didn't have to smoke it. And concerts, like we went to massive concerts.
Absolutely.
It wasn't expensive back then.
You know what? It's an excellent point. It wasn't $400 a pop, right? And don't worry if you inhaled the pot secondhand. Doesn't count. Just ask Ross Rebliati. Remember the Canadian Olympian? Speaking of posters, that's another great example. Like I had them all over my side of the bedroom I shared with my brother. Cars, you name it. I was, and I still am, a Lamborghini. It was my favorite exotic car. Lamborghini, Ferrari, Corvette, you name it. And then my brother on his side had a poster of Kiss in full makeup. Our next door neighbors and best friends growing up, their parents didn't want them coming over up into our room because of the Kiss poster, because they believed that Kiss stood for Knights in Satan's Service, and these musicians were doing the devil's work. Huh? Think about that. Grant, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
What was the best decade, Grant?
I would say 70s and up.
Why were the 70s the best decade?
Family gatherings with my mother's side of the family, my dad's side of the family. Now there's only one of them around.
So you remember the family ties. That's good. Not the TV show from the 80s, but the family get-togethers in the 70s.
Yeah, I would hang out with this very corny uncle, but yeah, that's what everyone thought he was. But
well, you know what?
I enjoyed his company, and we went out to single dances, and I remember this last dance I went to. I asked this lady to dance, and she said, no, she was taller than I was, and I said, are we going to get married? But, oh.
I'm not asking to marry you. I just want to dance with you. I've got a corny uncle, too. His name showed up on the letters to the editor page of our Waterloo Region Record yesterday. And even as corny as he is, we still love him. This is the Mike Farwell Show. Well, most of us still love him. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just about a minute to go before our update from the 570 News Center. Jen Tan is our board operator on the show today. Jen, what was the best decade for you?
Oh, my God. 90s until early 2000s.
90s until... But were you a teenager in the 90s? You were not.
Not really.
No.
Very, very young.
So why were the 90s into the early 2000s the best decade?
I would say because my favorite cartoons are there. I always watch it with my family, with my brothers. And early 2000s because we witnessed the transition of manual to automatic. So we don't have phones, right? Until early 2000s came, and then we had those
Absolutely.
like Nokia phones.
Wow. That's wild to me. What cartoon?
Ooh, I forgot. Tom and Jerry?
Tom and Jerry. Listen, I'm older than you, and I was watching Tom and Jerry when I was a kid.
And all of those like Japanese anime.
Absolutely. Anime. I had a feeling. All right. We got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. Walter and Ernie, if you want to hang on the line, listen, next hour is the Talkback Hour. We can pick up your favorite decade and get into more conversation that you get to start just by making a call to us. The Talkback Hour coming up here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yaggity yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
It is your daily Talkback Hour here on the program. You make the call, and you get to start the conversation. We're all ears. If it matters to you, it matters to us. I think we've got some carryover from the last 30 minutes. Happy to do that as well. We're talking about our favorite decades and why. There were carefree times, weren't there? Less carefree these days, it seems. But I think the more you know, the less carefree things get. Ernie, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. I was born in '84, but I've told you before I'm the youngest of 9 kids. So I had 3 older brothers that I absolutely...
Wait. Sorry. Youngest of 9?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 9.
Yowza. That's a big brood, my friend.
Yes. Well, we had a farm. We had to take care of it. But anyways, I had 3 older brothers that I absolutely idolized. So I would say more this carries on to the late 80s to mid-90s. But come on, you have to see, the Dukes of Hazzard, 18 was on, and riding with them in their Cutlass and listening to Def Leppard and AC/DC blaring, no care in the world. So I always, my older guy friends, they would say, Ernie, you're a lot older than what you seem. And it is because of just hanging out with them and seeing, what they liked, that became a lot of my life. And the cartoons, Mike. We had He-Man that I still got to watch. The cartoons were fantastic. And 80s wrestling, how do you beat that era of late 80s wrestling to the early 90s? I was blessed to grow up that quick, and I was neglected, so I got to watch a lot of stuff I probably shouldn't. Knight Rider, and Mike, I gotta say, into the early 90s, because that's when I was a little kid falling in love with Doug Gilmore, Wendell Clark, and those guys. That's where the Leaf era was. That's where it convinced me that I'm going to love the blue and white forever.
Attaboy, Ernie, attaboy. This is why we get along when it's not football season.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for the call. Good to hear from you. It's funny. So he talks about, born in 84. So in 93, he would have been 9. This reminds me of the ball team I used to play with. And a buddy of mine kind of recruited me over from the league I had been playing and come join us and this and that. Anyway, the year end of our first, I never thought one thing about it. I just went out, played ball with a new team. And at the end of our first season, we're having a year end party and we're just talking, and Blue Jays World Series came up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember being in first year poli-sci class, and I buggered off from class that day to go down to Toronto and watch the Blue Jays clinch. And they're like, wait a minute. You were in first year university when the Blue Jays won their first World Series? I'm like, yeah. My buddy's like, I was in grade 6. I'm like, okay. My teammate, I should say. So, I didn't even pay attention to the age gap between us. Very similar. I was in university in 93 when the Leafs had that memorable run. And my good friend Ernie from this show was 9 years old, which is about grade, 4, 3? Yeah, so even younger than my former baseball teammates. Anyway, onward we go. Walter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. You actually played sports, eh? Was that what I heard?
Easy. I shouldn't even call it baseball. It was slow pitch, and that was the extent of my athletic career.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as it wasn't T-ball, so that's okay. So,
why is it so incredulous to you that I played sports?
Oh, I don't know. It just seems like that you want to be a wannabe. I can't play sports, so I'll do everything else around sports.
Why do you think that?
What, do I have to have a reason?
Well, kind of, don't you? Like, what would give you? I guess not. If you don't want to have a reason.
That's how I feel.
All right.
That,
you think I'm a an athletic wannabe? I get it. Thanks a lot. That's a real compliment.
Hey, you've handed out a few over the years too, buddy. So, without a doubt, there, Mr. Mike, is in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. Unless you were born in the 1700s when Mozart was around or something, because everything kind of stems from that, from what I hear. But yeah, like that is the greatest of generation as far as music goes.
There's no question about that. I can't argue it. As much as I enjoyed the 80s, I'll give the 80s music I liked, 70s music I loved. Maybe my parents were listening to good stuff when I was in the womb and I didn't even know it. I don't know. Glenn, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks. Glenn, how are you?
I've got the answer.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I absolutely am.
The 60s, because, number one, Fred Flintstone.
Fred Flintstone, who drove a car with his feet. Okay.
Number two, Raquel Welch.
She was a 10, I hear. No, that was Bo Derek. Sorry. That was Bo Derek.
Number three, the Rolling Stones and a little group called the Beatles.
A little group called the Beatles. Okay.
And the last point, I'm not sure how many cups the Toronto Maple Leafs won in the 60s. I don't know. There's so many.
Glenn, I love it, buddy. I love it. A lot of wind on that call, too. But so many cups for the Leafs in the 60s, you can't even remember how many. I think it was 4. Anyway, Glenn, good job by you, buddy. Good job by you. Favorite decades. We are into our Talkback Hour every day between noon and 1. We get the chance to do this. You can continue weighing in on the best decade ever. We're all ears for that. But we've had lots of conversations on the show today, including around the clearing of an encampment in Kitchener. You know, advocates are pushing back against the region with their desire to remove encampment residents so they can get to work on some fictitious transit hub. I'm sorry I call it a fictitious transit hub, but it's been about a decade already with setbacks. Honest to goodness, I will believe the transit hub when I see it. You put a shovel in the ground, I might start believing it. But I'm looking at the transit hub like all day two-way go. Or phase 2 of LRT. I don't know. I hope we get it done. Anyway, we've got that going on. What about this report that Pierre Poilievre's riding is in trouble? He might not win his own seat. Come on. That's dubious at best, isn't it? It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. The Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We always want to give you the chance to be heard on this program. So when we discuss any given topic, we open the phones to solicit your feedback. And then every day from noon until 1, we give you the full hour. Maybe you didn't get to weigh in on one of the issues we talked about before, clearing encampments on busy street corners, our patriotism and whether or not we are in danger of carrying it too far. Remember back several years ago when we were canceling Canada Day because we were so upset with the history of our country, and maybe that took things to an extreme end. And now we're on this side of things where we seem to be as patriotic, if not more patriotic than ever. And we look down at people who make trips to the United States. How dare you take that trip to Florida? Come on now. I don't think we have to go to that extreme. I also don't think we have to boo the other country's national anthem. But that's just me. Maybe you have thoughts on that. And of course, Election Day now just 4 days away and reports emerging this morning. Initially, I heard of the reports from the Toronto Star and I kind of thought, okay, well, the Toronto Star is going to Toronto Star. And we know that the Toronto Star leans left. Let's just put it that way. But the front page of the Globe and Mail, too, suggests the same thing. The headline says, Conservatives deploy volunteers in bid to save Poilievre's riding. Surely to goodness, the leader of the federal Conservative Party is not in danger of losing the seat he has held since 2004. Is he? Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May? Almost time to put a fork in those leaders. I think they might be done, but I don't think Pierre Poilievre is done. Just some thought starters from here on the Talkback Hour. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Tom, good afternoon.
Hi. I think that they're overplaying this national anthems. I don't think we should play them at all other than the Olympics. This is really crazy because it's catching up with a lot of hate, and I think it's overdone.
I like the national anthem before the hockey game.
No. It's we don't need it.
Okay, I like it.
I like the national anthem, yes, and I love the flag, but you don't need them in all these local games or everything. So
okay, well, I mean that's fine. You're entitled to that. I've always enjoyed it, and it just if I can't stand for and listen to our national anthem before a hockey game, and I go to a lot. I'm probably coming up on 80 hockey games this year. Shame on me, I think. Anyway, that's just me. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. Yeah, I'd like to erase the 80s from my memory bank. My God, what a brutal decade.
Really? Why?
Oh, my God. The bolero outfits that people used to wear with the puffy pants. If you had a car or a vehicle that created 100 horsepower, you were living large. A horrible decade. But anyway, I can go on, but we don't have time. But, Mike,
okay.
You were mentioned about Pierre Poilievre. Now, if he does lose his riding, I think, he can always run in a by-election out in Alberta or even up in Oxford County. He would win easily, hands down. But the problem is this, I don't think it's so far the leader's problem. I think it's the party itself. Like, that would be 4 straight elections that they failed to pull through. So the party has to look at itself in the mirror. Like, even their campaign, like, they're talking about plastic drinking straws and crowd sizes. Like, who cares about that? Like, basically, this is the old Reform Party in disguise as the Conservative Party. I mean, even Doug Ford provincially, he's become a little more moderate over the last few years. I think they have to kind of come a little bit towards the middle or center if they want to resonate with the public.
Do you think that banning or bringing back plastic straws, though, is really that far right, or is it just too small an issue?
Too small an issue.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Paper straws suck, but I mean, come on, there's other issues.
Straws suck, Terry. That's what they're made to do. Yeah.
Drink from the glass. Be a man. Listen, but I think the party itself, I don't think it's Pierre Poilievre's issue. I think it's a party issue. I mean, I think by now people are realizing what they really are. This is the old Reform Party, and they got to come a little more towards the center. I mean, Pierre Poilievre, say he does lose his seat, he can run again. Come out to Oxford County, you'll win out here easily. But the thing is that they can't keep, like, do they even want to keep him if he loses his seat? Probably not.
No, I don't think they would. But I can't imagine. He's not going to lose his seat, Terry.
I don't think he is, but who knows, Mike? Stranger things have happened. But I don't think him losing the seat is the worst thing, because he can always run in a by-election. But it's this party. I mean, if
he can't run in a by-election.
Sure, he can.
Well, if there's another election.
No.
Is he just going to force one?
Well, no. In Alberta, one of them, or even Oxford, they can resign their seat and then he can run in their place.
I see. That's what you want him to do.
Yeah, that's probably his only choice. But I think this party itself has to look at itself in the mirror. I mean, become a little more moderate, like Doug Ford did. Okay. Anyway, Mike, that's all I have to say. And the 80s were bad.
Okay. Yeah, 80s were great, Terry. Interesting idea. The Conservative Party needs to take a look at itself and maybe come closer to the center. I don't know. I saw the spending plan. It's a whole lot of spending. Usually, we associate Conservative parties with cuts. I didn't notice a lot of that in the costed platform, but Terry says this Conservative Party is just the old Reform Party in disguise. What do you think about that? This is the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Yes, indeed I do. And thanks to those of you who have pointed out the dozens and dozens, upwards of 90 names on the ballot in Pierre Poilievre's Ottawa area riding. It's the longest ballot committee. They figure by putting more names on the ballot, they're pushing us towards electoral reform. I don't think it's a great strategy, but nonetheless, and sure, that could obscure Pierre Poilievre's name, and maybe that's by design. According to today's Globe and Mail, 2 federal Conservative Party and 2 provincial Conservative Party sources, unnamed because they're not authorized to speak on this, but 2 from each have suggested Pierre Poilievre's riding is in danger. I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in this, but one never knows. It's absolutely an election between Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney. I don't see the others involved as having any level of impact. And I really think the other leaders that we should be looking at on the hot seat, Jagmeet Singh and Elizabeth May, they may well not win their respective ridings. Back to the phones on this Talkback Hour. Dave, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I want to throw a different thought at your 11:30 topic.
About the best decade ever?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say regardless, it's the decade that you first got your driver's license and purchased your first vehicle.
Because it came with freedom, didn't it, Dave?
It sure did.
Yeah.
Go Rangers, go.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that last part. Boy, oh boy. It's weird today for me to be here. When I was doing a little segment with Christine Clark this morning, if you listen to the morning news with Christine and Mark Douglas, just before 9 o'clock, I come on with Christine and I tell her and you what's coming up on the show today. And I said, it just feels so weird. We were in such a rhythm, hockey, every other day for about 2 weeks in that series with the Windsor Spitfires. So today would be a hockey day because the last game was 2 days ago. But no, we got rid of those Windsor Spitfires on Tuesday night. And tonight's a night off. And tomorrow, oh boy, we are going to be playing the London Knights. I get to go to my favorite city tomorrow because we open the series in London. Also this morning, I slacked. I mean, I hope it turns out to be worthwhile, but I didn't do the usual level of preparation I do for the show. I hope it doesn't show. But I got working on a special bit of audio to play for you at the beginning of the show tomorrow. So put a pin in it, set your alarm, make sure you're here right at 9:04 tomorrow morning for that special piece of audio. I worked hard on it. I worked so hard on it, I didn't work on anything else. But that's for tomorrow. We continue our Talkback Hour this afternoon on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Just checking out the Kitchener Rangers website because I'm led to believe that there will be a fan bus headed down to game number 2 in this series with the London Knights. The fan bus for the Sunday game, though, not for tomorrow's game, but for the Sunday game. I don't see anything on the Rangers site yet, but you might want to check in with great Canadian coaches who are the coach operator, provide that transportation for the Kitchener Rangers, and they've did a couple of fan buses to games in Windsor. So check in with Great Canadian for a potential fan bus going to London on Sunday afternoon. It's a 4 o'clock game on Sunday, 7 o'clock tomorrow night at Canada Life Place in London. And that means our Harris Law pregame show will start at 6:30 right here on 570 News Radio. Paul Fixter and I will get you set for the game so that you are as ready as can be with the information you need and some entertainment, of course, as well. Fixie will be with me on the show tomorrow morning, as will Rangers head coach UC Ahokas. The weekly coaches and other coaches shows between 10:30 and 11. So it's a Rangers game day on a Friday, and the programming will be followed accordingly. And check with Great Canadian Coaches for that potential fan bus on Sunday headed down to London. Good luck. I wonder how they score the tickets, because I have noticed in London they like to spread out the visiting fans. You're lucky to get 4 seats together, much less 40 or 50 that you put into a fan bus. But you can be there and you can make noise, and that's all that really matters. Reminder, something I mentioned on the Farwell Show 5 at the beginning of the show today, more photo radar. I know these are your favorite words, right? Photo radar, speed cameras, automated speed enforcement. You can call it whatever the heck you want. More cameras are coming to the region. And as the cameras arrive, there are more locations that cameras will be rotated through. So just brace yourself. The signs are there. Sometimes the camera's there. Sometimes the camera's not there. But they rotate through. I think we're up to 16 different locations now around the region. And connected to this, several locations are going to become permanent locations for speed cameras in our region. So I want you to be aware of this. It's going to start on May the 5th. So not next Monday, Election Day, but the Monday after, on May the 5th. Permanent locations for speed cameras in our region. Three Bridges Road in Elmira, Hilltop Drive in Ayr, Broome Street in Ayr, and Keatsway Drive in Waterloo. All of those streets have schools on them, so you're driving slower and more carefully anyway, but just beware. Those locations, Three Bridges Road, Hilltop Drive, Broome Street, and Keatsway Drive, all will have speed cameras permanently starting on May the 5th. Watch your speed. My recommendation, go even slower than what the sign says, because those tickets, as we've learned this week, get awfully expensive. Back to the phones here on our Talkback Hour. Daryl, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And you?
Good.
Good.
Hey, hands down, best decade, early, mid-'80s. Now, I was born early 71, so that goes with the thing of your teenage years, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, I farmed for a living, and in those days, I had my license when I was in grade 10. Used my dad's old Delta 88 and would pick up everybody on the way.
I love it.
And used to cruise King Street.
Oh, my gosh. Do you remember doing that, Daryl?
Oh, man. That was the days of the Craigers. Remember the Craigers?
Sure I do, yep.
And the big fat BFGs on the big cars with the traction bars and all that kind of stuff. That was crazy times, right? The cell phones have ruined, the life. So,
Daryl, yeah. I appreciate the call. Thanks, buddy. And thanks for being a hardworking farmer. Appreciate what you guys do.
Yeah, thanks.
Good to hear from you today. Cruising King Street. I'd almost forgotten about that. It's been so, you can't cruise King Street anymore. And I'm not going back to the days of angle parking. Don't get me wrong. It's a little bit before even my time, but we would do that, right? You'd hop onto King, probably Cedar, and take it down to at least Victoria, windows down, music cranked like the obnoxious teenager that you were. And, oh yeah. And you'd see people, you'd wait. Downtown was full and active. The streets were packed. People were going to movies. People were doing stuff. Yeah, cruising King Street. Good memory. And Daryl's right. It ties into, and forgive me, who said that moments ago? Dave did, about when you get that driver's license, it's just that sense of freedom that comes with it. It's so different today. I don't know about your house, but I don't know that our kid will ever get her license. Now, her boyfriend has his, and maybe that helps to mitigate some of it, but they're so much more connected to and reliant upon transit, and good on them. But for us, I remember going to write the exam for my beginner's license the day after my 16th birthday. The only reason I didn't go on the day of is because it was a Sunday. And so I couldn't. And I went to the MTO it's now the Legion there on Belmont, the day after. As soon as I could, wrote the exam. And think about that. Talk about the carefree 1980s. I write a test and they put me behind the wheel of a car with a licensed driver, but that's all it took. G1, G2, G, I can't keep that all straight. I wrote a test and then they put me on the road. Good times, baby. And I'm here to tell about it too. This is the Mike Farwell Show. Your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. That same co-worker, Paul McPhee, who anchors the afternoon news with Aaron Anderson here on 570 News Radio, just poked his head back in the studio, said, "You're dating yourself by talking about a beginner's license." I know, but that's the way it was. And you got that beginner's license, and yes, you had to be with a licensed driver in the vehicle, but that was it. Like, I walked out of that building having written a test and then started operating a motor vehicle. And you didn't tell me what time of day I could drive it or on what roads. Just go get them, kid, as long as a licensed driver is sitting there in the seat beside you. Good times, the carefree 1980s. That's when I got my driver's license. Anyway, we continue your Talkback Hour. Curtis is with us. Afternoon, Curtis.
Afternoon, Mike. I won't take much of your time. Can you hear me?
I certainly can, sir.
Awesome. Yeah, the 80s, without a doubt. And anybody who tells you differently, it's because they've become weak. As society has moved on, it was perfectly legal to walk around in your pajamas. And nobody did that in the 80s when Van Halen was rocking. That's all I got to say.
All right, Curtis, thanks very much for the call. Oh, the 1980s. Van Halen jumped just past 1 billion streams, I believe was the number I saw the other day. 1 billion. Grant, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. I think we should give Luke Ellis a key to Kitchener for getting us to this stage of the OHL, and I, instead of saying Lucy in the sky, Lucas in the sky with Landon Sims.
Oh my goodness, you are fixated on Landon Sim, aren't you? Be careful what you wish for, Grant, because the Rangers are about to play the London Knights, and I don't think Landon Sim likes the Kitchener Rangers very much. But I like what you're saying about Luke Ellenis. This kid has shown himself to be one hell of a playoff performer, hasn't he? He had a coming out party in the playoffs last year, got himself drafted to the Ottawa Senators, the playoff among other things. But he showed up in the playoffs, and he has done that again this year for the Kitchener Rangers. Both goals Kitchener got on Tuesday night in their Game 7 win over Windsor were scored by Luke Ellenis. And the Rangers move on to play London starting tomorrow. David Schooley, our good friend. Good afternoon, sir.
Mike Farwell, how are you?
I am excellent, negotiator. How are you?
I'm good. So are we talking about cars or are we talking about the Rangers?
Let's talk about cars. I like talking about cars with you because you're a car guy.
Oh, my God. I own so many better cars in the 90s than I did in the 80s. But one of my, the cruising on King Street, we did it in Tillsonburg. I had a 73 Gremlin, mellow yellow with great big fat tires on it. It was a terrible car. But I want to talk about the Rangers for a minute.
Sure.
The Kitchener Titans and Panthers are so proud of their little brothers in blue. Windsor did hand us our butts in Game 5, but a little bit of good karma. We beat London 5 games in a row.
Ooh, okay.
If never been done before.
Nice.
5 games in a row, so historic. So that's the karma that's going towards the Rangers.
I like it. So your Titans left a little bit of good mojo there in the auditorium for us.
A lot of good. Yeah, they did not like us, and no one has ever done that before. So now the Rangers can finish it off.
Sounds great, David. Always good to hear from you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, take care, Mike.
You too. David Schooley, the negotiator. You know, we work, Paul Fixter and I, from David Schooley's broadcast booth. He's a passionate sports fan. He is excellent at the work he does. Award-winning broker, RE/MAX Twin City. That's why we call him the negotiator. And he really, like, when you reach out to David sometime for support when it comes to your real estate needs, get him going about cars. The stories, oh my God, and the cars, oh my goodness. We've had many a good chinwag about the vehicles that David has owned and enjoyed. I'm a car geek too. Really enjoy them. Afif, I haven't heard from you in a long time. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. I was in the U.S.
Oh, you were in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Okay.
My brother was, he was having like some sort of like ceremony for his medical school. So I was like, okay, let me just go ahead and meet him. So
Good. What was it like in the U.S.? Did it feel different? How was it?
Everybody was nice to me. Everyone's like, oh, you're Canadian? I was like, yeah. They're like, ooh, that's pretty bad. I was like, yeah, but I mean, we're still like, we're still Canadian. We're still happy.
Why do you think it's bad to be Canadian?
They think, because they're like, oh, you're going to be part of us. Right?
Oh, yeah. We're going to take you over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to be our slaves very soon. I was like, slaves?
Right.
Seriously?
I got you.
Yeah. So, but the main thing I called is because, the Victoria Street encampment?
Yes, sir.
Well, I just drove by it, and it's just getting bigger and bigger per day. Like, they got like a big, like, almost like a house there now.
Oh, yeah. No, there are some pretty significant structures there, but the regional council passed a bylaw last night. They're going to prevent new structures from going up, and they're going to take the ones that are there down if they get their way.
Awesome. That'll be good.
All right, Afif.
Also,
yeah.
The other thing is go Rangers and go Leafs.
I love it. I'm so happy that the Rangers and Leafs, thank you, London Knights, for starting the series on Friday so we can stagger the Leafs games. I haven't been able to watch a Leafs game, although the last two Leafs games were on the same nights as Rangers games, and both teams won. Like, let's not mess up that mojo. The Leafs, you can still win tonight. And then Rangers, you just go and win tomorrow and everything will be fine, right? And Afif says, good on you, Regional Council. It's time to get rid of that encampment at Weber and Victoria. Your Talkback Hour continues here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Final moments together on our show today. At 1 o'clock, we'll get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then from 1 until 3, Rob Snow is here with Now You Know. Something else you know, if you were listening to the Farwell Show 5 at the beginning of the show today, I do 5 little headline-type pieces to give you some information to get our day together started. One of the other things I talked about was how the provincial government and its education ministry is taking over control of one school board in the province, and its financial mismanagement is what has caused this. The province looking into, you might remember the story out of Brantford, where Catholic school board trustees took what essentially amounted to a luxury trip to Italy to spend $100,000 on art for the new Catholic school they were building. Like, let that sink in. These are public dollars, right? And you fly first class, and you expensive dinners, and you travel from place to place in the lap of luxury, and then you spend $100,000 on art for a school. Like we don't have any artists in Brant County. Thames Valley, London Way, you'll remember, had a board retreat at the Rogers Centre Skydome Hotel, and they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on these things. So these stories came out many months ago, and now the province's education ministry is stepping in to take control. I will say this. I'll take it a step further, and I've pointed this out before. I think it's time for school boards, these boards of trustees, and this doesn't help their cause. And you want to say, well, don't let a few bad apples spoil the whole bunch. Sorry, we tend to do that all over the ding-dang place. We are electing people. We vote for these folks. With what background are we putting them into positions where they can misuse the public purse like this? What motivations do they have for being on a school board? And how much emphasis is placed on the success of our students in the classrooms? I think we have lost a little bit of that focus. I really do. For a while, and this just reinforces it, have been of the mind that we can get rid of boards of trustees. Thank you very much. they have very little power to do anything, except in this particular case, misuse our money. Let's prevent that from happening. No more school boards. Thank you very much. The provincial ministry dictates everything anyway. My 2 cents as we close out the show today. We'll come back tomorrow morning at 9. Do it all again, okay? Game day, baby. My name's Mike Farwell.